I am the monster, rah rah rah. I am the monster, rah rah rah. I am the monster, I am the monster, I am the monster. Rah,
Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Spencer Penrod. I am a world builder who makes worlds for stories, for D&D campaigns, things like that. And I am using some of the skills I've developed throughout the years to take a look at Epic the Musical today. We're in the Underworld saga. Last time we finished up the Circe saga, where we saw a lot about how gods treated magic, how magic was viewed and used in general. And they set up that Odysseus would need to go down to the underworld to recover or talk to the soul of a prophet. Which I'm now realizing I didn't really talk about the implications of that much. So let's jump into the content today, but at the start, I want to take a little bit of a time to talk about the implications of what we learned last episode. So the fact that there's an underworld and that it houses the soul of a dead prophet and that that soul is still useful means a few things for us. It means that, first of all, the most obvious is that when souls pass on, they go and are collected somewhere. They're not reincarnated. They're not consigned to oblivion. They go to somewhere. We don't quite know whether that is the equivalent of heaven or hell, or if it's its own thing, but there is some place they go to after they die. The fact that Odysseus is being sent to seek out a specific prophet and seek his advice means that we're told that when the soul passes on, wherever it ends up here in the underworld, it still retains its sense of self and presumably any abilities that it had in life. Like with the prophet, you would expect some kind of oracle abilities, some kind of ability to read fate, and the fact that the soul is something they're seeking out, despite being dead, means that it likely still has those abilities. So that means that power is stored in the soul rather than the body. And it means that the soul isn't like wiped clean or influenced in any way. Or if it is influenced in some way, it's not enough to prevent them from helping Odysseus with something that is really irrelevant, presumably, to the overall state of things in the underworld or the plight or situation of the prophet. So yeah, with that, let's jump into it. I'm excited to see what more we learn about the underworld, the dead, and how all of that goes.
Friends, Circe's instructions were clear. No matter what we hear, full speed ahead until we find the prophet. My comrades, this land confuses your mind. So no matter who we find, full speed ahead until we find the prophet. Good.
Okay, so we have the warning that no matter who you think you see, no matter what you hear, you've got to keep going. This land confuses the mind. So that tells me that they're probably going to encounter some kind of illusions or tempting audio visual experiences that make them think they're seeing people they know or plights that they identify with or sympathize with that they're going to want to stop and deal with, which tells me that this land is capable of reading their minds to some degree. Or I guess alternatively, it could just be presenting situations that appeal or kind of tweak the hearts of a majority of people. I guess that could be another option. I'm excited to see which it is. We're seeing lightning, but this is inside a cave, isn't it? Where did we see that shot? Yeah, this is definitely inside of a cave. So the fact that we're seeing lightning here is really interesting. It means it's probably not natural lightning. There's something supernatural causing it. So far, the supernatural things we've seen have generally been gods or monsters. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the influence of one of them here soon.
All I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who've died. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. And here in the underworld, the past seems close behind. This land confuses your mind.
So it's giving them nightmares, and presumably not even just when they're sleeping. He says whenever he closes his eyes, which could mean whenever he sleeps, but I think it means literally whenever he closes his eyes, he's kind of getting flashbacks. Like, this land brings back painful memories of the dead for the people who are here. And that's the reason it's confusing the mind, is that it's flooding them with their regrets with the people that they have killed or let died. And so they are just being haunted by the specters of the dead, basically.
When does a man become a monster? 558 men who died under your command. Captain, 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 why would you let the Cyclops live?
So this is apparently what his haunting is looking like. And I'm curious because the implication is that this is the memory of his dead crew haunting him. But the details of that are what intrigue me, because are these literally their souls, literally expressing their discontent, or is it just a memory of them? It would have two different implications, and I'm not sure which. One thing that has kind of been on the back of my mind and been pointed out to me in comments is that when you hear a choir, it's got to be... There's two situations in which you hear a choir in this musical. The first is when it's someone literally singing, like the crew on his ship. And the second is when you're dealing with the gods who can summon their own choir, their own kind of backing vocals. So either we're dealing here with a god who is summoning their own choir to taunt Odysseus, or it's literally the souls of the dead, and they are actually here, present, and voicing complaints. Both of those have really different implications. I'm curious to see if we'll figure out which it is. But based on the fact that they're seeing souls in this river they're sailing through, makes me think that it's probably the second option, and that these souls are kind of being tortured by their regrets and expressing them to Odysseus.
When ruthlessness is mercy, all I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who died. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. But in the underworld, the past seems close behind. I keep thinking of the infant from that night. I keep thinking of the infant from that night.
So that, I think, is the first confirmation we get that he did kill that infant, or at least implication that he killed that infant. That if he's haunted by the souls of the dead and he keeps thinking of the infant, it really, really heavily implies that he did kill him. So that is a little weird that it took so long to actually confirm that, but it makes sense. It definitely looked like he was going to do it. You don't generally dangle a baby over a 30-foot wall if you're not going to kill it. uh, like normal people who don't kill babies don't do that kind of a thing. So it makes sense, but I think it's interesting to note that that's the first actual confirmation we've seen of it.
This life is amazing when you breathe with open arms. Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, or we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms. Apologies.
So that was interesting. I feel like there are, again, there's not a lot of hard confirmation on what's going on this episode, but there's a couple things this could mean. First is that we see Polites here with like a distinct glow to him. He looks happy. He's not tortured like the souls of the men in the river. And unlike the rest of them, he's expressing like optimism and happiness rather than regrets and suffering. So either this could be just part of the illusion that it's not necessarily pulling only harmful memories, it's just pulling any memories, and he thinks so highly of Polites that he would kind of assume that he is content in his death. Or what I think is the more interesting option is that this is literally Polites here, and that his soul isn't consigned to the river because he doesn't have regrets the same way that the tortured souls do, and that he's kind of higher above them. If we like literally higher above them in this shot, he's up here on this cliff above the river as he fades away. And it's because he's kind of raised up out of this misery that's dragging the rest of them down and keeping them in the river. The implication of that, though, would be that he no longer has his glasses here. And that would mean that souls are not bound by their bodily imperfections. That they are kind of restored or whole where the body would be lesser. I could think that maybe it just means that they don't have objects like glasses, but he's got clothes on, so it makes sense that he would have things associated with him in life if he needed them. But the fact that there's no glasses means that he probably doesn't need them to see as a soul, which means that the process of death kind of perfects someone in the same instance that it turns them into just a soul. So even though the soul keeps its power, like the prophet is implied to have, it doesn't keep its imperfections or the things that hold it back in life.
That voice. It can't be. Mom?
Odysseus, when you come home, I'll be waiting. Even if you're the last thing I see, I'll be
I'm right here, Mom. Can't you see? I'm waiting.
This seems to imply that his mom said she would wait for him at home when he left to the war, and then she died. And this is where he's figuring out that she died. But she's also presented in this way that Polites was, where she's glowing, she's presenting positive emotion rather than negative emotion, which to me really implies that these are literally the souls of the dead, because Odysseus wouldn't be hallucinating the soul of his mother if he didn't know she was dead. And she's saying that she would wait for him to come home, which is nice, but I could see it being warped into a regret where she's like, how come you never came home when I was waiting for you all of this time? And if the souls of the dead were purely there to harass, if this was an illusion created purely to torture the people passing through, then I would think that he would see his mother in a more negative light, where she was berating him for not coming home. But the fact that it's positive really makes me think that these are literally the souls of the dead presenting their actual feelings and emotions, which kind of sucks because it sounds like most of his crew hates him now. But it's nice that he's got a few people here presenting positive emotion. So that's nice, I guess.
I took too long
I'll always love you.
and ventured too
I'll
far
stay
while you were
waiting, waiting.
Bye, Mom. All I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who died.
It's interesting to me that he goes right back to this refrain of all I hear are screams immediately after having a positive interaction with the dead. It makes me wonder if he's saying that when he closes his eyes, he hears the screams, but when he forces himself to keep them open and look around, that's when he's able to notice the people who present positive emotion to him. Because those weren't people shouting out to catch his attention. They were kind of people he needed to find. And we also didn't hear the screams of the dead when he was talking with them, which makes me think that because he wasn't relaxing and closing his eyes, he was able to focus on the more positive aspects of the dead, the more cathartic ones, rather than just the torture that he gets when he isn't sharpening his mind to find the dead who have nice things to say.
Nothing's what it seems, but in the underworld, your past is always close behind. Your past is always close behind. Down in the underworld.
I have no idea who that is. If I had to guess, it would be the god of the underworld, but it might be the prophet and it might be someone else. We'll probably find out fairly soon into this one.
I am the prophet with the answers you see.
Okay, well, we did find out very quickly into this one. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so direct or fast, but that's nice. He also definitely seems to still possess his prophetic ability because Odysseus hasn't said anything about why he's here, and the prophet already knows that he is being sought out for answers, and he already apparently knows what those answers are.
Time, I've unlocked it. I see past and future running free. There.
He says that he sees the past and the future at the same time. That's interesting because it's not a property of him being dead, because he was a prophet before he died. Well, I guess we don't actually know he was a prophet before he died, because we hear that there was a great prophet. The problem is he's dead. So I guess it's potentially true that he became a prophet after death, and he gained the ability to see the past and future after death. Yeah, so I guess we don't actually know either way. So let's see if it elucidates, I guess.
There is a world where I help you get home, but that's not a world I know. What?
What does that mean? There's a world where I help you get home, but it's not the world I know. He could see the past and the future. So I feel like that has to mean that he sees branching futures, and maybe the most likely path. And the most likely path isn't one where he helps Odysseus get home, but he can see that if he did help, then Odysseus would be able to get home. It's just interesting phrasing, because he's not saying that there is a possibility of it, or that there's a path for it, or he's not even saying that there's a future where this happens. He's saying there is a world where that happens, which to me makes me wonder if it's kind of like he is aware of different futures, and depending on what he chooses, it almost creates like a branching world of that timeline. And he's kind of choosing which world line to follow when he chooses a future. And he's saying that you can choose, I guess he's not saying you can choose that world, just that it is one of the possible worlds. Kind of like Steins Gate time travel almost, where it creates different branching worlds off of one core one. And he's saying that that core world is one where Odysseus doesn't get home. But that's a little bit sci-fi for what is more of a fantastical, mythological story. So maybe I'm wrong about that. The phrasing is really strange, so it makes me wonder.
I see a song of past romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand. I see you on the brink of death. I see you try your final breath. I see a man who gets to make it home alive, but it's no longer you.
So him saying he's seeing all of these possibilities. Some of them are in the past. Some of them sound like they're in the future. And he's saying, it sounds like he's saying that he can help Odysseus get home, but his journey is going to change him so much that he's going to be a different person. So maybe his talk about the worlds earlier was more like, I think that there is a world where you get home, but I don't know it because it's no longer you. You're not the same person. So it's like, I don't know, that still doesn't quite make sense with that phrasing though. It sounds like he's presenting Odysseus with a choice now though of, do you want to die before you get home, or do you want to get home a changed man? It doesn't sound like he's giving him an option that's nice and easy where he gets home and everything is okay. So that's notable. It makes me think that either he's limited in what he's willing to offer, or he's limited in what he's able to see, or maybe Odysseus himself is limited in the possibilities that he's able to attain. In any case, some kind of limitation is keeping Odysseus from getting a nice, safe home journey. And even though this prophet has apparently unlocked the secrets of time, it's not enough to get Odysseus home without issue.
This can't be. We've suffered and sailed through the toughest of hells. Now you tell us our efforts for nothing. I see your palace covered in red, faces of men who had long believed you're dead. I see your wife with a man who is haunting, a man with a trail of bodies. Ooh! I see a song of past romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand. I see you on the brink of death.
That's interesting here, where we see this choir coming up. I mentioned earlier how the choirs are either diegetic, they're actually there, or they're summoned by the gods. So the fact that this prophet isn't a god means that this has to be the souls of the dead, and Odysseus is still kind of being haunted by them as they help this prophet tell of kind of a horrible future, where he's saying, even if you get home, everything is going to be terrible. Your wife's not even going to recognize you. You're going to be like a different man. You're going to presumably paint your palace in red. It sounds kind of like he's going to kill a bunch of people who thought he was dead and took advantage of his absence. And that even if he gets home, there's going to be a trail of bodies that led the way there. Which is an interesting thing to say to someone who just came from war, where presumably they would be creating a trail of bodies no matter what, because they're fighting and killing people. But it sounds more like he's talking about the trail of bodies that are the people he led to war, that more of his crew is going to die.
I see you try your final breath. I see you.
Wait, okay, so I think this choir is telling him specific threats he's going to face. So there's Siren Song, Scylla Throat. I don't know what Scylla is, but Throat makes me think it's some kind of monster and he's going to be eaten. Mutiny is obvious. His crew is going to rebel. Lightning Bolt. He's going to be struck by lightning. Maybe that god of the clouds and storms that we saw in the first animatic gets pissed at him. Hurt Poseidon. That one's weird because hurting Poseidon isn't like a thing he would suffer through. That kind of sounds like a good thing for him, something he would want, because he's kind of poised against Poseidon right now. Kill all the suitors for love. Okay, yeah, that sounds like what I was saying earlier, where he was killing people who, or it sounds like he was going to kill people who took advantage of his absence. If they were suitors for love, they were presumably going after his wife while he was gone. And he's going to kill them all for doing that when he gets back. Which, again, is kind of a weird thing to include, because that's not a suffering thing in the same way that the others are. It's definitely not a good thing. Like, that is the sign of someone who is a little unhinged and dangerous. So maybe that's him changing. It would definitely be ruthlessness. I wonder if the reason it's included with these threats is because it's so much more ruthless than Odysseus has been so far, that it's showing that he's going to change in the way that Poseidon and Athena wanted him to, but it's going to take a lot of suffering for him to get there. and that killing the suitors isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but it's notable because it shows that he is no longer following Polity's open arm mindset and has truly drifted to the ruthlessness that the gods follow.
But it's no longer you.
It would make sense too with this, it's no longer you who gets home, because he's going to be changed and turned into someone who is ruthless despite his efforts to greet the world with open arms, to be merciful, to be a kind man. That's the kind of person he seems to be trying to be throughout these songs so far, but it sounds like that's not the person who's going to get home. We also see that prophet just fading away, right? Which all of the spirits have so far. Like, that's not the prophet anymore. I think that's future Odysseus. Like a vision of who he will have to be. But it seems like... It kind of seems to me like the spirits can't manifest for very long in this underworld area that they're in, and that they can only talk to mortals for a little bit before they're whisked away or faded away. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff so far. We've only got one more here before we are done with the Underworld saga. So let's get into that and see what we've got.
How has everything been turned against us? How did suffering become so endless? How am I to reunite with my estranged? Do I need to change? I'm surrounded by the souls of those I've lost. I'm the only one whose line I haven't crossed.
What does that mean? I'm the only one whose line I haven't crossed. As in, he has a line somewhere that he's not willing to cross, and he's made other people cross those lines for themselves, but he hasn't done it. That would make sense to me, because we've seen him kind of be unwilling to bend when it comes to pride or faith in himself. Whereas a lot of other people around him are being subjected to rather cruel situations that force them to give their all. Like, I don't think many people would be faced with the wrath of Poseidon and be willing to, like, lie to him to preserve their pride. They'd be willing to give up anything. And it sounds like he's making the men under him give up everything, but he hasn't done so far. It's also interesting to hear him confirm that he's surrounded by the souls of the dead, literally, instead of like echoes of them or illusions of them or something like that, which we guessed was the case. But it's nice to hear confirmation of it.
What if the greatest threat we'll find across the sea is me? What if I'm the monster? What if I'm in the wrong? What if I'm the problem that's been hiding all along? What if I'm the one who killed you every time I gave to guilt? What if I've been far too kind to foes, but a monster to ourselves?
Yeah, that's kind of a theme that we've seen a lot, is that he needs to be more ruthless, because, I mean, ruthlessness is mercy to ourselves. And it sounds like he's really beating himself up about the Cyclops incidents, which honestly, Mercy was not the problem there. The problem was his arrogance at the end, telling him his name and his address, and like he would have been fine if he hadn't done that, presumably. So I kind of feel like he's taken the wrong lesson here. But it sounds like he puts a lot of trust in what this prophet has said, which is that he is no longer going to be the same man when he gets home, and that there's a lot of problems coming because of him. And Odysseus here is really internalizing that and saying that he, like really doubting himself because of it, which is interesting because he's so prideful and so sure of himself that it's strange to me that he would place the words of a prophet above that, which means I think that it's not like he trusts prophets above himself, or even trusts like Circe vouching for this prophet. I think what it means is just that he's had these thoughts and emotions that he's been dealing with internally for a while, and that the prophet really resonated with them when he spoke. Because otherwise I don't see Odysseus being like, am I in the wrong? He would be like, no, the prophet is wrong. I'm right. Who cares what time says? Who cares what fate says? I'm the one who decides it. But the fact that he's doubting it now means that he must have been having these doubts for a while, and the prophet reignited them or was seen as confirmation of them. And Odysseus is treating it with a lot of respect because of that, not because of the authority that this prophet is perceived to have.
What if I'm the monster? Is the Cyclops struck with guilt when he kills? Is he up in the middle of the night? Or does he end my men to avenge his friend and then sleep knowing he has done right? When the witch turns men to pigs to protect her nymphs, is she going insane? Or did she learn to be colder when she got older and now she saves them the pain? When a god comes down and makes a fleet drown, is he scared that he's doing something wrong? Or does he keep us in check so we must respect him and now no one dares to piss him off? Does a soldier use a wooden horse to kill sleeping Trojans cause he is vile? Or does he throw away his remorse and save more lives with guile? If I became the monster.
So I don't have much to say about that. It was mostly rehashing old things that have happened, and no new information was really added. I guess the only thing we really learned from that sequence is that the Trojans were asleep when they killed them, which would make a lot of sense because what we saw in the animatic was that they were all kind of awake and surrounding the horse, which would make it hard for them to like infiltrate and do anything with the advantage they got. So the fact that they were asleep would let them really get into position, throw open the gates, get wherever they wanted, kill a lot of the resistance before they got up to actually fight. It would definitely make that a lot more brutal of a tactic. And he says he saves more lives with guile, which must mean either he's deluding himself, which I don't think is likely, or what I think is the case is that the war was bleeding so many lives from both sides that just ending it is going to be better. Because if it went on for, say, another 10 years, they would lose more people in the long run. And the fact that it was going on for so long with no progress means that he had to think of some strategic way to end it so that it doesn't just bleed away all the lives on both sides.
Threw that guilt away. Would that make us stronger? Would it keep our foes at bay? If I became the monster to everyone but us, and made sure we got home again, who would care if we're unjust? If I became the oh, ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves, and deep down I know this well.
So we're hearing that choir again, and it sounds like his crew. But we don't know for sure. We don't see anyone. it's likely not a god tormenting him with the choir. So I think it's either meant to be the souls of the dead, because they're still in the underworld, kind of taunting him, or maybe he's kind of meant to be presenting this to his crew, even though the animatic hasn't really shown that. And they're like, no, you would definitely be a monster for doing these things you're considering. It is interesting, though, that we don't see anyone singing, when normally we either do see who it is singing, or we see that it's a god who can summon their own choir.
I lost my best friend, I lost my mentor, my mom, 500 men gone. This can't go on, I must get to see Penelope and Telemachus. So if we must sail through dangerous oceans and beaches, I'll go where Poseidon won't reach us. And if I gotta drop another infant from a wall in an instant so we all don't die, then I'll become the monster. I will deal the blow, and I'll become the monster like none they've ever known. So what if I'm the monster lurking deep below? I must become the monster, and then we'll make it home.
It's interesting to me that he says, I'll kill another baby. Like, first of all, we got heavy implications in one of these last songs that he did kill it. Now we have outright confirmation, so that's nice. But it's interesting that he's like, I will become the monster now, because killing a baby didn't make me a monster. And it's also interesting that I wonder if killing that baby kind of haunted him, and why he was so open to adopting Polity's mindset, because like the kind of ruthlessness it takes to kill an infant because they might present a threat in the future, or depending on how much you trust the gods, would certainly present an issue in the future. Like that's kind of next level ruthlessness compared to like finishing off an enemy who you've already maimed and who has already killed several of your men. So it's interesting that the lack of mercy for an enemy that they're fighting seems to be more monstrous to him than killing infants in their sleep. I feel like that tells us a lot about him and what he values, that probably he values like a warrior's death or warrior's code type stuff a lot more than he views the innocence of children. I guess it's hard to say for sure, but it just is weird to me to hear him kind of casually acknowledge that he killed an infant and also not consider himself a monster already for that.
Become the monster.
All right. Well, that is the Underworld saga. I liked it. I feel like it was one of the weaker ones in terms of songs. It had some interesting implications for the world building, and especially like what happens to the dead, which were cool. And it also makes me wonder, so far it feels like everything he's encountered on this journey is trying to shape him into a monster, as he says. It's trying to teach him ruthlessness. It's trying to make him drop his attitude of mercy and kindness and just turn everything to be a weapon against his enemy, which is kind of what Athena was wanting him to learn, it sounded like. When we see her scolding him with the Cyclops, it sounds like she's been trying to teach him that lesson and he's been resistant to it, and the final straw was sparing the Cyclops and she was just cutting her losses. But the fact that everything seems to be hammering that lesson into him, every god he encounters, every person he encounters, everything in the world, it kind of makes me wonder if Athena is pulling strings behind the scenes and is like, hey, Poseidon, go rough up my buddy here and teach him to be more ruthless because he's just not getting it from me. And if she is pulling strings behind the scenes, it would make a lot of sense why everything seems so stacked in this one direction. Of course, the alternative is just that that is really how everything in the world works. It's being run by ruthlessness, that nothing is kind or trustworthy or worth mercy. And he's just been fighting against that for a while, and now is realizing that now that he's lost in the world alone, he has to fight against it on his own and just can't. And it's slowly whittling him down as he's being formed more and more into what the world is. I kind of like the first option more. I feel like it's more interesting if he's got a god pitting everyone against him. But I feel like the second option is probably more likely to be true. In either case, maybe we'll find out more in future videos. For now, I am going to be done, and I will see you next time. I think the Thunder Saga is next, if I'm remembering right. And yeah, this is... I've mentioned before that I've heard the album on Spotify with no context. This is as far as I've ever listened. So anything else is entirely new to me. And most of what I listened to has been the Circe Saga. So I didn't know much of anything before, but I've listened to it at least once. So I'm excited to hear the new stuff that I haven't before. And I'm excited to see the animatics, see what we learn about the world and what's in it. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time.